Oh, yeah. Last video I made was quite upsetting. I have to sell off an acre of my land. I leave it to pay up a bill that was initiated by my wife and then sold off to a collector and then another collector for $5,400. Oh, I feel so lucky. Life is an unending stream of bills, scammers, crooks, so on and so forth. I'll edit that out of this video. I was actually asked by a lot of people, when I was a great deal younger, I purchased various land. Most lucrative was in Medina, Utah. And I've had a 100% track record on buying land. I own a few pieces of land, and I look at land every day. And even the tightest person I know on this earth who never ever spends a penny, I've found land for him that was just so great, such a great deal, that he bought both pieces. The earlier of which was 2 pieces of land, one of which, and by the way, this sounds incredible, but it's real. It's in Pikeville, Kentucky. It's 75 acres of land, and I got it for $234 an acre. Total sale price was $18,300. It basically took all my money. I even had to borrow $5,000, which I've since paid off. I borrowed it from a relative, but paid it off. But people wanted me to make a list of the important stuff, and I looked online if there were any really good checklists on buying raw land, and 99% of them were like 5 or 10 things, and half of those were wrong. So I have a list here of things. If you want me to make an actual PDF list, I can do it. But these are things that are very, very important. All of these attributes are important. Every piece of land will miss some of these attributes, but that's okay if the price is really good. I have a piece of land that's just outside of Glasgow, Kentucky. It's just under 10 acres. And the only reason, it had already been on the market, but the only reason it had not sold, several people looked at it, and I found out from the realtor that was the case. And I knew it would be because it's right next to a ritzy neighborhood. Most of the land backs up to a ritzy neighborhood, and it's been professionally surveyed. And it has incredible road access. It's like, well, why didn't it sell? There's a few reasons. One of the reasons, and that's another thing down the list, is that it was land inherited by some old lady, and she never even saw the land. She just wanted to get rid of it and get it out of her hair, so she never even looked at it. And even the realtor himself was very, very old. It's like, here on the professional survey, it says there's a barn, and the old guy goes, it's probably not a barn there, it's probably a shed. There's a huge, huge barn there, and that lumber is worth money. Depends on the type of lumber it is, too. But the reason why this land is sold to me and not anybody else is that when you pull up, it has 2 accesses. This piece of land that I have, this is very important actually. It has an extremely ugly face to it. There's all these thickets and briars, and you look at it, you're like, oh God. And nobody wants to like whip out their machete, basically nobody, to try to hack their way through and like look at the remaining parts of the 10 acres. You can see like maybe a quarter acre of it, and it's like, oh, this is horrible. And that part, which had been mowed for years and years and years before it was left to go to pot, and raw land takes care of itself, which is another fact, it did not sold because it looks so superficially ugly. I mean, it's like, well, I don't want to make a dating reference here. That would be untoward, but I got the land, and it's the most valuable, best land that I have. It's got a huge barn on it, it has huge trees on it, and it has a pond. But just a quarter acre back from that, thicket of bramble and just thorns and stuff nobody couldn't see through and didn't want to go through, I took the other back access. This is where looking at Google Earth maps is so important. There's another important thing. Look your stuff up on Google Earth and zoom around it and ask the realtor about different access points. And the land is gorgeous. Most of it is not bramble and thicket at all. It's just forested, gorgeous, gorgeous land. Has a creek running through it. But nobody bought it because it had a really, really ugly face to it. And nobody wanted to look past, this land is horrible, look at it. They were looking at it from the wrong spot, and they never actually got to see the land. So really important point on land buying. Check property taxes. Check what your taxes are, your tax base in the land that you're buying is so incredibly important. I mean, you might get a deal on land, but property taxes are redonkulous. That creates a problem. Has there ever been a survey, a professional survey on it? This is both, now a survey is worth its weight in gold. And depending on the size of the land, how hilly it is, survey can be, a few $1,000s to many, many, many thousands of dollars. Half the land I have is just a survey, and the other half is not. Other people just won't buy the land. Like say you're buying, like the land that I got really cheap. I even talked to the realtor, and I said, why did nobody buy this? I said, well, there's no survey on it. And it could be off by like 5 to 8 acres, max, really 5 to 8 acres. Check your local PVA office too, to what the PVA says the acreage is, which is usually not accurate because that's not a professional survey either. But it is almost never off by more than like 5% max. It's usually like on 100 acres, it's almost never off by more than 5 to 6 to 8 acres, just never. But at $234 an acre, when I got that 75 acres for $18,300, I wouldn't have given a single hoot in hell if it was off, even by 10%. Say, instead of 75 acres that I assumed I was buying, it turned out to be 65 acres. Well, who cares? It was so cheap. And another reason, too, and this is another secret, this land used to be owned by a coal mining consortium. Yeah, and there was a coal mine underneath there, and I also got the mineral rights to that land, which nothing in Pikeville really comes with mineral rights, but I got it. It's a separate deed. Is that the coal mining company, they do their own survey, and even though it's not a professional survey, it's really, really, really frigging accurate. It's basically a professional survey that is not a professional survey. Yeah, so it doesn't hold up in a court of law, but you know how much land you're getting. So this was killer. So a survey is worth its weight in gold, but sometimes if a land is not surveyed, it keeps the fools away. It's like, well, if it's expensive and it's not surveyed, that's bad. But in the case of this, where the land had not been surveyed, I didn't give a single damn. And the reason why is the land was so frigging cheap. Ridiculous cheap. Neighbors, don't talk to them until you own the land. You think you should, but you do all your research, but not. You talk to your neighbors. They usually, 9 times out of 10, don't know the land right behind them, next to them, is for sale. They don't. If they find out, then they're gonna buy it from you. So don't talk to your neighbors until after you bought it. What, very, very important, does it have water? Water is really, really important. The kind of water, if it's spring water, absolute the best. I have a spring. Creek, great. Have a well, awesome. So does it have water at all? That has a whole lot of impingement upon its actual value. Trees, are they all scrawny little trees, or are they desirable trees? It might have been logged 30 years ago. It's like got tons of trees, but they're all kind of scrawny. Too scrawny, such that they're not worthwhile to harvest. So is it old growth lumber? I've known people that have bought land. My rich buddy really regrets it. He could have bought this beautiful piece of the top of a mountain that overlooks the town that he lives in. He didn't, because he argued with his father whether it was worth it or not. Well, the guy that did buy it, he just sold the trees off of it, not clear cutting, select harvesting, and he got all his money back, which makes the land free. You can get free land that way, by the way. Always look for land that's been inherited for sale, because the sellers don't know what the hell is on it. That's really awesome. Somebody died, people inherit it, they don't care about land at all, they just want to get rid of it. Always look for that. A fence is gold, especially if it's flat land, you think about farming with it. A fence is almost like a professional survey. Look, see if it has a fence on it. Also look to see if it has great access. If it does have great access, meaning road access of any kind, this means you could subdivide it up into parcels and sell it off, and that itself is gold. The amount of paperwork and the cost involved is actually not that much. See if it's a great place as a campground Kickstarter for a money income. Make the land pay for itself. Hilly, unsurveyed land can absolutely be pure gold, like my land in Pikeville, because it has old growth trees on it. It's to sell the trees, just part of the trees, not clear cutting, okay? Just select harvesting. And the land could be free. Now, 75 acres I got for $18,300 is easily got $20,000 worth of trees on it. You know, that stuff growing on your land is just no different than cash. It really is. Depends on the type of trees it is, too. I found out from lumberers that it varies from year to year. Like 1 year they might want oak and not want walnut. They don't give a damn about walnut, even though walnut's always valuable. The next year they really want walnut. It depends on what the lumber yard really wants. They'll give you premiums on that. It's like, we are saturated with oak this year. This year we need walnut. We want walnut. And a few years later, it's like, we're sick of walnut. We're loaded up with walnut. We don't give a damn about walnut, even though, of course, it's always valuable. I've found this out from many lumberjacks and folks. Once again, you find out the tax base for property taxes. How good is the internet and cell phone access? How good is it? That's really important for a lot of people. How close is it to the nearest town for food? Very important. Check out your zoning, see what you can and can't do with the land. That's very important. People forget to look at that. Look out for pissy neighbors. My land in Montgomery has got really pissy neighbors on one side. Everybody hates her. It's not really an issue when you got significant acreage, you know, that close to each other, but, you know, look out for pissy neighbors. You can kind of tell, even without meeting them, if they're pissy neighbors. Because remember, don't talk to your neighbors. They don't want to know. You do not want them to know that that land's for sale, because it'd be right next to theirs, and they're extremely interested in buying it. So don't keep them in the dark. Treat them like mushrooms. Feed them poop and keep them in the dark. Hound realtors to death about picking your land out before it gets listed. Once you get listed, you got all sorts of suckers trying to vie for it. You make contacts with realtors and you say, listen, I ain't going to finance nothing. I got cash. Not that this is really cash. It's $1. I got cash. You know, next time you find some raw land, let me know. I will make it worth your while. Wink, wink, nod, nod. And I'm not just talking about the commission. Wink, wink, nod, nod. You know, I'll make it worth your while. I got cash. Realtors hate it when there's the buyer and the seller and the realtor, and there's the bank who's financing the thing. They hate it because when you have cash sale, it's boom, boom, done. And they get to move on. Offer these bonuses to realtors for finding you the land. Wink, wink, nod, nod. It's incredibly important. That way you can get land before it gets listed. In other words, they just got it. They ain't listed. It's like, hey, you know, you're the guy that's going to told me you got cash and you're going to offer me an incentive. I got this land. I haven't listed it yet. If you want it, boom. Once again, offer cash for land. Realtors and sellers hate for banks to be involved. That's very important. That's not my opinion. That's a fact. I can tell you that's a fact. Don't buy land that is landlocked. In other words, you have to go through someone else's land to get to the land. That's a huge issue. Now, there is easements and right-of-ways, and that's basically in every state, and that's legal. You know, you have to have right-of-way to your land through someone else's land, but it really screws things up. Unless it's like a killer deal. I got one piece of land that is landlocked, but there's a road to it. I've talked to the neighbor. Everything's great. The easement is written into the deed. Make sure that when the deed is written up that you get that easement in there. That's very important, actually. But try to stay away from landlocked land. It's like, oh, this is a great piece of land. The only reason you would want to buy landlocked land is if it's awesome. You know, it's like got a cabin on it and water, and it's just really cheap. Then, okay, fine, I'll buy landlocked land. This is what people say, oh my God, I bought 100 acres, what am I going to do with it? Woe was me. Raw land takes care of itself. Mother Nature makes sure to take care of raw land. The only thing you need to take care of is like you got a cabin on it, you take care of like an acre or so around the cabin and the road to get to it, but don't worry about having 100 acres or 50 acres or whatever. The raw land, by definition, takes care of itself. You need to make sure if it's in a floodplain or not. If it's in a floodplain, unless it's really cheap and super fertile. I got one piece that's in a floodplain. Stay away from it. Floodplain, watch out. Are utilities close? How close are utilities? Very important. Look at that. Look into mineral rights. Like you bought the land, but you don't own anything 2 inches underneath it. That's a problem. Like up in eastern Kentucky, almost nobody has mineral rights. Nobody owns the dirt underneath the land that they own. So look about whether yours has mineral rights. That's incredibly important. A barn, everybody loves a barn, but a barn, I have 3 barns. A barn isn't worth anything. One of my barns is dilapidated, so technically I got 2 barns. A barn isn't worth anything unless it's well built and has a concrete foundation. People bid up land due to having a tobacco barn or a barn on it, most of which are in kind of like, halfway dead shape. They're kind of rotten and falling apart, most of them anyway. But it really doesn't add hardly any value to a land. Oh, look at that, this land got a barn on it. Like I said, unless it's got a concrete foundation and it is very modern and super well built where you could turn it into a barn-dominium, that's what they call them, then it really doesn't add any value to a land. But everybody thinks it does, but it don't. It's kind of like having a gold-plated turd. It's like, oh my God, it's gold-plated. It's still a turd. Buy land, if possible, cheap next to ritzy neighborhoods. That's basically the same thing as saying buy the worst house in the best neighborhood. So buy my land near Glasgow is right next to a ritzy neighborhood. When I say ritzy, it's a pretty damn good neighborhood, a really good neighborhood. Buy land next to ritzy neighborhoods if you're looking for an investment. I mean, it's just like if you can get it at a decent price and it's right next to a really good neighborhood or even better neighborhood that is just pure gold, always get a title search, that's insured. The title search is insured. Title search is usually like $500. Always, always, always get a title search. Some total lies and garbage online will say buying raw land is a risky investment because it won't generate any income. It may not generate capital gain when the property is sold. It's just total BS. You have all sorts of ways to make money off the land. Hunting rights, trees, rentals, camping, four-wheeling. There are actually a lot of ways your land can actually pay for itself. A lot. So that is just bad advice about raw land. It's just not true. Buy land that has a farming exemption. Each county is different. It's like if you get more than 10 acres in one county I know of that have land, then you get this huge discount, and my property taxes on that. My property taxes on my 75 acres, get this, $130. I paid it last month. $130 on 75 acres. If I'm lying, I'm dying. So look at land with a farming exemption, making property taxes really, really, really cheap. Most important thing when you buy land, when you're looking at it, you want to inspect it, don't take the frigging realtor with you because they don't know anything about the land 99 times out of 100. Walk over the frigging land. Walk over all of it if possible. Walk it over. You will see things other people don't know. You'll see pluses, you'll see minuses. You gotta walk the land. It's dirty, it's messy, you can put on your boots. So what? It's an investment. Once again, offer cash. Realtors work on numbers per year. They would rather make one quick flipped buck on a piece of land and move on to the next piece of land to sell than sit on the land looking for higher and higher offers. And I know realtors say they represent both the buyer and the seller. But here's the absolute truth. Realtors want to get it in quick and move it out quick because they deal in how much stuff they can move per year. It's like, well, I sold 500,000 acres of land. I had to sit on it for a year and a half before I sold it. Usually it doesn't take that long, of course. So what? It's like, I only sold 3 pieces of land last year, even though one of them was a really big number. So what? These realtors don't work that way. They're trying to get it in quick, trying to get it out quick. And you realize that, you can take advantage of that. Here's the last important point. When you buy the land, you have to be incredibly proactive on the property taxes the first year because the government is slower than a constipated turtle. And they will send the property taxes to the prior owner. Say you bought it in March, the land in March. You just assume they're going to send the property taxes to you in September, November, December, wherever they normally send it. No, they won't. They won't register you as a new owner until next year. So the first year, you have to be proactive. You have to call the Sheriff's Department, PVA, say, I'm the new owner. It's like, yeah, we don't record those till next year. So yeah, I know that, but the property taxes were just, you find out when they mail the property taxes. I know, but I'm the new owner, send me the bill. I know you sent the bill to the prior owner, which they will always do. You tell them on the phone, the Sheriff's Department, send me the bill. I'm the new owner. And they will, so you got to stay on top of the property taxes. So there's best tips and tricks on buying raw land. All these tips are valid experience, and I have quite a bit of experience in this topic. I can actually say that these are expert tips. I don't consider myself to be the super guru of buying raw land, but I can consider myself to be an expert on buying raw land. I don't have anything to do with like housing or structure real estate. I don't touch any of that stuff. I don't, but I know a lot of things about raw land because I've experienced them. I know about them. I've had to go through them. And these are important tips and tricks on buying raw land. I hope you like this video. If you do, any donation is warmly welcome and greatly appreciated. God knows I need it because I work twice as hard now to make half as much, which really, really sucks, but that's the world we live in today. If not, I hope this video helped you. Thanks so much for watching. Goodbye.